Today we're speaking to Arjun Rajkishore, principal designer at Canvs. Arjun, in all your time as a designer, since you've worked with so many young designers, what's the one thing you think gets overlooked?
One of my pet peeves is people coming up to me and telling me that they're problem solvers, right? Being a problem solver and solving problems is the core of product design, right? Uh, I always have to do a double take whenever I hear people say that they're problem solvers because I wonder why they have to specify that they are one. I think a lot of the times, like, we are also taught as product designers that you have to kind of say that you solve problems for a living. But I think that that way is kind of wrong, and we need to change. We need to get out of that because you don't need to specify the most basic thing that you are doing at your job. One of you have to also be able to learn from not only your own problems that you're solving, but also be able to learn from other solved problems that other designers and other design teams have sort of done, right? When working with younger product designers, one of the things that I tell them is that they don't have the luxury of being able to just use products and apps the way that a user would. They have to be able to deeply analyze and understand what is happening within that pattern, right? Like, so if you were to look at a product, and if you were to go through a flow, and you have to understand the decisions that were made that led to that. This has to be done consistently. It has to be done with conviction, and it has to become a habit, so that you become a good problem solver in general, right? This has to become second nature to you.
How have you grown into the role of being a principal designer, and what's it like to you now?
So I graduated design school in 2015, and I started working with Canvas around 2017. I was working as an independent designer first, and by around 2021, my role with Canvas had evolved a lot. I was doing a lot more than just doing design. I was working with all of the designers. I was working with developers. I was a lot more deeply involved with the team overall, and the team had grown as well by then. Um, and now I have been a principal designer for a while at Canvas. Being a principal designer itself is a very interesting and challenging job. Uh, my main job is to be involved with a bunch of different projects that are disconnected from each other. This means that what I do is I work with everyone that is involved in these projects. I am responsible for the people that actually work in the projects. And also, most importantly, I am responsible for the quality of output that comes from these projects, right? We want to make sure that we're only sending things that we are actually proud of, and that's one of my core responsibilities as a principal designer. One of the things that comes with being a principal designer is that people are going to come to you with questions of all manner. This means that you not just need to know the answers to what is happening with these individual projects, but you need to have a really widespread understanding of the industry in general, so that you're able to give them an answer that actually makes sense.
Every designer wants to focus on the fun, high impact work, but there's always grunt work involved. How do you see the relationship between the two?
One of the biggest red flags for me when it comes to growth is people that are doing something that they're hoping that in some time they'll never have to do it again, right? I feel like, when it comes to getting your hands dirty, when you're doing things like such as you're defining color tokens, or if you're designing spec sheets for like 50 screens, or if you're doing something like you're fine tuning shadows on a particular element or something else like that. I feel like if you're not willing to get your hands dirty with those kind of things, then that's a sign of a lack of growth, right? Trends change so often, design tools change so often. For example, 5 years ago, doing any of these things would have taken a lot longer than what it takes right now. So if you yourself are not doing it regularly, if you're not getting involved with it now and then, you tend to lose sight of how your tools that everyone you're working with is using. And eventually what happens with that is your entire process becomes archaic.
In all of this, how does design management play a role?
So Canvas has always had design managers from the very beginning, right? I think that's one of the reasons why it's easy to work at Canvas itself. Design is really multifaceted that way. You've got your business, you've got your management aspect of it, you've got your business side of things, you've got the craft side of things, you've got many other things as well. What having design managers helps the design team, at least, it helps them in actually focusing on their craft, right? You don't have to get bogged down by the minutia of things such as like stakeholder management, complicated client feedback, getting bogged down with calls, doing all these kind of things. What you can focus on is you can actually focus on being able to receive feedback in a timely and constructive way, and also being able to actually focus on the craft that helps keep the quality of the output still the same and something that we expect. One of the reasons that this works well is because the design managers are designers themselves, right? So they're able to actually communicate what the client has said in an easy and digestible way to the designers themselves. And then the responsibility is also given back to the designers to make sure that they have to communicate to the managers what their intent was so that they can tell the clients about it. And I think that's why design management is super important.
And what do you think makes Canvas different as a studio today?
I don't really count the years that I've been at Canvas. I think that comes by pretty naturally. When you've been part of this system that sort of works for you and that grows organically for this long, uh, it the cultural side of things or the culture as an aspect to a company just comes naturally. It doesn't just become one of these checklist items that you have to check off. We don't balance craft and culture here. What we do focus on, we focus on the craft and the people behind it. I think that just takes care of it in general. What we do know is we know how design is done really well. We know how craft can be mastered, and we know how to get a really, really good output out of our work. What we don't know is we don't know how an agency is run. What this allows us to do is it separates us from the baggage of actually being able to run an agency, but function more like a design studio. I think that's really what sets Canvas apart from the rest.
Design today looks very different from design 10 years ago. How do you keep up? And what role do you think AI and new tools play today?
So when I started doing UI design, we used to do UI Photoshop at the time because there was really no other tool that we could work with. That evolved to tools like Sketch. Now lately we've been using Figma. You don't have an option of not keeping up with these tools. You have to do it. AI to me is super exciting. It's very, very interesting. I think one of the common traits of being a product designer generally is at some point you kind of want to like to build your own products or you have ideas that you have in your head that you want to see come to life. Before the problem was that, those would just stay as ideas. You had to learn how to code or you had to have trust people that that you can sort of share your idea with, and then you get an MVP back. You have to do a lot of like back and forth to get it to the level that you want it to be. And mostly what ends up happening in that case is that we have a drafts code that's just full of ideas that is just collected digital dust, right? So today with AI, what's happening is with tools such as like Cursor and Bolt, what we're able to do is just using simple enough prompts, like natural language prompts, we're able to actually build functional MVPs that you can at least take to validate your idea. I feel like that itself is like light years ahead than what you're able to do. You're also able to like even upload your design straight from Figma and it recreates it for you. There's a lot of progress that can be made just by understanding how to prompt correctly. All of this is not to say that, you can get rid of a developer or, you don't need to maybe like pay attention to the code or anything and say that. All this is it functions as a catalyst to the ideas that you have in your head to see whether or not they are valid, and then you can take the next step if required.
We see a lot of designers in this industry for years who are still not at their peak performance. What do you think they're doing wrong while gaining experience?
You can't really count experiences number of years, right? You kind of have to look at it more so as a summation of your experiences that you've had throughout your career. In our industry, much like any other sort of industry that relies on craft, you have to make sure that you're staying in touch with trends, you're keeping up with tools, you're staying relevant. Uh, in a very, very fast paced industry. Like, I think one of the main reasons that we see this sort of disparity in the quality of work and the years of experience is people generally tend to get pretty lazy and complacent once they become comfortable. And what happens with that is you tend to not keep up with anything. You sort of get stuck in your ways, and eventually your whole method of thinking also becomes archaic. The main problem with this is eventually, if you don't actually get with the times, like if you don't actually keep up with things, you will have to step aside at some point.
How do you work with clients who've been doing things certain way for years and aren't necessarily open to change?
So when you're working as a designer in any capacity, right, whether you're an independent designer, you work in a small startup, you work in like a big corporation, any of those kind of things. There are so many facets of the entire industry that you have to be aware of at all times, right? You have to understand that you have your craft side, which we've discussed. You've got all of the other things, but one of the most important things is actually the interpersonal relationship that you kind of have to build with your clients as well. You are the expert, yes, at what you're doing, right? But one of the things that you have to do is you have to be able to be that person that they can build a relationship, somebody that they can actually rely on. These things take time, it takes effort, and it takes a lot of understanding from your end as well. I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people fail at doing. Like, you can't go in with the notion of thinking that your solution is the only solution that they have to accept. You kind of have to understand their side of things as well. They usually have a lot of very, very good business insights that can help you in your entire process. And you have to be willing to take that level of feedback. Not every fight needs to be a fight. Not every decision needs to be yours. Like, you have to understand, you have to be able to draw that balance between, is this a hill I really want to die on, or is it something that I can compromise? There is no good design without compromise. And I think that's where that's one of the things that designers really, really have to focus on.